Jumpstart Historic Horizons that has just launched into MTG Arena. I'll be talking a little bit about whether or not it's an event that you want to partake in, depending on where you are in your MTG Arena career, what it really is. If you're new to the game, you're not really sure what this whole new event that's added to the game really does for you as a player. And just, talk about the good and the bad when it comes to adding new cards to a format as a whole. With that being said, if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here and want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. It also helps out the channel by putting a +1/+1 counter on it. And with that being said, let's just dive into the video and let's just talk about it. Also want to give a quick shout out to the channel members. As you see your name here on the screen, you can also become a channel member as well by clicking the join button down below by the subscribe button or the link in the description. But thank you again for supporting the channel. So this past Thursday, we got released a new event into the game called Jumpstart Historic Horizons. If you've been around in MTG Arena for at least the past year, you may have seen this event pop up once before as a different kind of branding, just a Jumpstart as a kind of a thing. They did a physical and a digital launch side by side. Now they did a Jumpstart for just Historic specifically. These cards are Historic legal. It's adding an influx of cards into the game that are from Modern Horizons 1 and 2. That is kind of like the gist of what this set is really doing. There are so many cards, I think, instead of them doing it in a pack form and having you just buy packs individually, they decided to do some sort of event. So there's pluses and minuses to each kind of method of how they added it to the game as a whole. But this is a limited time format. I believe it's available until like the middle of October, if I'm not mistaken. For some reason, I'm thinking the 12th is kind of like the date I'm thinking on the top of my head. And this is an event that you can kind of do over and over again. So depending on how much money you have or currency, you can keep on buying into the event as many times as possible and actually, get into wins over and over again in each event that you do partake in. The one benefit to an event like this, it is all RNG based. So the decks you do build are kind of random. So it's a lot of time. It's going to take you a few times to kind of see some of the same decks over and over again. It does have a decent amount of variety. The other downfall to it being a limited format compared to something like a draft is you are kind of stuck with the packs you get. You don't really get to pick cards from other people's packs to kind of build the deck you're looking for. So you're kind of set in stone when it comes into that. But with that being said, let's kind of like take a look at the actual event, kind of go through the process, kind of talk about the process as I'm kind of picking it out and kind of go about, what it really is when you physically start the event. So the first and foremost thing I would say here, it is actually not too bad price-wise, depending on what kind of player you are. If you're a free-to-play player or even a player who pays, the event doesn't cost a lot to initially get into. It's either 400 gems, which isn't terrible, and 2,000 gold, which also isn't terrible, as you are guaranteed to get a couple rares in each of the packs that you do pick from, which is always very good. So if you think about it, it's probably comparable to buying a pack of, Magic, as well as you're going to get an influx of uncommons and commons into your collection as a whole as well for Historic from Modern Horizons 1 and 2, so that's definitely a benefit as well. So we're going to enter with coins, as that is what I have the most of, and this is what we're going to do. You're going to choose the first theme pack. You get to choose from one of 3 themes. We have Rats, we have Fairy Lies, and we have On the Draw. And what you can do as well, if you're unsure what it really means, is you can hover over it, and it kind of gives you an example of what you're going to get in the deck. This has Rat Colony in it. Rat Colony gets +1/+1, a +1/+0 for each other rat you control, and a deck can have as many number of cards named Rat Colony in it. I'm not really sure how many Rat Colonies in it. I will leave a link down in the description below because there is a link to some spoilers if you want to see all the different deck lists, if you can get a breakdown what's in each pack. I'll leave a link to a website that will kind of give you that breakdown in case you're wondering what's in each of these packs. Maybe if you want to do a little bit of research before you dive in and kind of know what you're drafting as well. We have this middle one that is Fairly's Sky Shroud Partisan. It's a Planeswalker starter, which is definitely very good. On top, one target elf you control. And my assumption, just based on this, what I'm just seeing, is that it's going to have a deck that's going to be built around elves. So this is definitely a good elf card if you're looking to possibly build elves in Historic, if that's something you're looking for. And the first ability is +1 on tap target 1 elf. That elf and a random elf creature card in your hand perpetually get +1/+1. And perpetually is a new mechanic that essentially means that this effect lasts for the rest of the game, no matter where that creature goes. So it's definitely very good. And giving a +1/+1 counter perpetually means that it just goes on forever. -1, we get to seek an elf card, which means we get to go into our library and get an elf out of it, I believe, randomly. And then -6, conjure a card named Regal Forest onto the battlefield. And essentially that just means we conjure a card named Regal Forest, comes onto the battlefield. We don't have to have it in the deck. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. And that's another new ability that came from Modern Horizons Historic. And that's also a digital only type thing. These cards don't exist in physical Magic. So if you want to get this card, it doesn't actually exist physically, which is kind of like the big heated debate that kind of is going on currently in MTG Arena and Magic as a whole. Like, why, digital only cards, that doesn't seem like the right thing to do, as Magic's always really been a physical game. So to have only cards that are exclusive to the game, kind of making them more in line with like a Hearthstone and games that are only digital only, kind of feels a little weird, I guess to the longtime Magic players as a whole. And the last card is we have On the Draw, which is we get a Fairy Vandal as our example card. This card has Flash, has Flying, and whenever we draw our second card, each turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on Fairy Vandal. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to pick your first pack. I'm going to pick the middle one because, getting a free Planeswalker is definitely very good. It is a Mythic. And we'll see where this goes. Do we get another pack that can kind of combine very well with Elves? We'll find out. So we'll click Confirm Pack. And now we will get our second kind of pack. That we get to combine that with. So we can choose from Cycling, which we see we have a Flourish Fox that has the Cycling ability. And we kind of think to ourselves, does that ability kind of go well with the Feralize ability? We can think about it. I'm not really sure 100% just because these aren't elves or anything like that. But a lot of cards are going to... This will give us a draw mechanic in our deck. And that could be something that we could use to our benefit. Maybe draw an X amount of cards as we try to build a little bit of tempo. So that is something we can possibly think about. The next one is Legion, Ranger Captain of Eos. It's a 3-mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, we can search our library for up to 4 creature card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into our hand, and shuffle our library, and we can sacrifice him, and your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So definitely an interesting card. It's another Mythic, which is a possibility that we may want to take it. Just if you're looking to rare draft, you can take this. But at the same time, too, I'm unsure if it's going to really work with what we're trying to do. I'm not really sure what Legion really consists of. As me personally, I don't really like to spoil these things, so I like to kind of do them blind. So this is a possibility, but I'm unsure 100% at the same time. And then the last card is Enchanted. It's Omen of the Sun is our example. If you played Standard and current Standard, you already know what this card does, but it's a 3-mana flash card that enters the battlefield. You get 2 1/1 human creature soldier tokens, and we gain 2 life, and we can sacrifice it and scry 2. So I'm kind of thinking about it. We already have green. This is a green-white card. A part of me is thinking that maybe we should take the Enchanted, because I'm gonna think the Enchanted, based on what it's saying, is not just gonna be like these enchantments that do these things. There may be some auras we can attach to our creatures, making our creatures stronger, and there maybe could be some enchanted creatures as well. And I think that's where we're gonna go as a whole. And I know you may be thinking to yourself, oh, take the Legion, got the Mythic, but I had the benefit of having a little bit of extra currency, and I could do this multiple times, and I've already kind of done this a few times, so just to kind of get a little bit of practice in before I do so. So we're going to take the Enchanted, we're going to hit Confirm, and now our essentially our deck building is over. Because essentially what this is, if you're not really sure, if you've never seen the physical version or even the digital version, is that now we took these 2 piles of decks and we just kind of mash them together, and then we get this deck. So we'll kind of open the deck up so you guys can see. I'll move my camera because I'm in a bad spot. Alright, so now we're looking at the deck and we kind of get an idea of what we really drafted as a whole. As you can see, the deck in general is a green-white deck, which is definitely pretty cool. It has a combination of a bunch of cards. Some cards you may have seen before if they're cards that have already existed in current Magic, in MTG Arena, and or in physical Magic, and some cards that you may have not seen before if you haven't really played a lot of Modern. Some of these cards are exclusive to the Modern Horizons sets that have just recently come out. We just had the Modern Horizons 2, and then we also had Modern Horizons a couple years back as well. And they're exclusive just to those sets, but they're cards that are built just for Modern. So if we look at the deck we kind of got, we have 1 Llanowar Elf. We also have 1 Powerless Wayfarer. A Human Scout has a Constellation ability. Whenever we cast an enchantment, enters battlefield, target creature control gets +1/+1, so it's kind of a cool little bounce effect. Our pump effect, I should say. We have All Seas of Late Bounty, which is, yet again, if you played regular Standard, this is a card that you may have seen a lot of. It's a 1-mana 1/1 enchantment creature with lifelink, and we can sacrifice it and kind of give target creature or enchantment control protection of a particular color of our choice until end of turn. Preventing our opponent from either killing our creature with removal or targeting that creature any sort of way, as well as even, blocking a creature and then giving our creature protection so that it lives through combat. So it's definitely a pretty cool card to kind of add into the deck. Then we have Baffle and End, which is kind of like a cool way to kind of lock down what our opponent's doing. Enters the battlefield, we get to exile target creature and opponent controls with mana value 3 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, our opponent gets a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token. I'm not really sure how much in the way of enchantment removal there is, but it's definitely a cool way to kind of slow down our opponent's aggressiveness on the battlefield. Then we have Pacifism, which is a 2-mana enchantment aura. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. This is definitely a card you've probably seen in a bunch of decks. It's, I think, in the mono white starter deck that you also get when you start the game in the the tutorial. Destiny Spinner is another card that's in standard currently. Creatures and enchantments you control can't be countered. I don't know how much in the way of counters there are in this Jumpstart Horizons. And then tap 4, we can target land we control becomes an X elemental creature token with trample and haste until end of turn with X's number of enchantments you control. It's still a land. So, it's kind of another thing that kind of makes our lands even be able to attack into our opponent to be aggressive. We also have Gift of the Growth. It's a 2 mana instant with kicker 2. Means we can pay additional 2 mana as we cast it. We untap target creature. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If this spell is kicked, it gets +4/+4. So just a little bit of a pump spell. Paradise Druid as a 2 mana 2/1. And that has hexproof as long as it's untapped. And we can use it as a mana producer. We can tap it for 1 mana of any color. We have Sky Shroud of the Ambush. It's a 2 mana target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. When that creature you control wins, you draw a card, which is another cool ability. I do think this is a card that's exclusive to historic Jumpstart in MTG Arena. I don't think this card exists outside, but it's kind of like a cool thing. Like you get something if your creature that you're fighting with another creature ends up winning. By winning means it's the one that lives at the end, so it has to survive damage. So even if you can't trade, you have to be the creature that wins in the end. Scarchild Lookout's a 2 mana 1/1 with reach. Enters the battlefield. We have to seek an elf card. Yet again, seek is to seek a card. Put one at random from your library into your hand. So you just get to seek your library for an elf card. It could be any of our elves we do have in our deck. Song of the Fairlees. It's a 2 mana enchantment saga that until your next turn, creatures you control gain 1 mana tap it for 1 mana of any color for 2 turns, and the third turn is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, indestructible end of turn, so allowing us to attack him pretty aggressively. And it's not a bad saga for only 2 mana, so definitely a pretty cool card to add into our deck as a whole. We have Sithis, Harvester's Hand. It's 2 mana, white and a green and a white. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So it's kind of like a tempo card. So it's kind of like gives all our enchantments a 1-for-1 kind of ability. Omen of the Sun, which was our example card. I kind of already went over this when I was looking at the pack. We have Veteran Charger, which is a Centaur Soldier. When it enters the battlefield, we get to choose a card in our hand, and it perpetually gets +2/+2. Perpetually is an ability that effects and counters are not removed from cards when that change zones, and by changing zones means it goes to the graveyard, exile, anywhere else on the battlefield. That card will come back onto the battlefield if it ever does, with that +1/+1 counter or +2/+2 counters, regardless of it leaving the battlefield at any point. Then we have the Fairlees, the Sky Shroud Partisan, the Planeswalker we were talking about. We kind of already went over the main abilities, but this is the Regal Force, which is the other ability. It's a 7 mana creature, though we're going to get it into the battlefield for free because of the -6 if we do get to that ability. But when it enters the battlefield, we draw a card for each green creature control, and because we are playing green-white, we could draw a lot of cards, and it's a 5/5 on top of it. We have Llanowar Tribe. It's a 3 mana 3/3 that we can tap it and add 3 green mana, so it's kind of like Llanowar Elves ×3. We have Captured by the Legax. It's a 1 colorless white and a green. Enchant creature can attack or block. If Capture log us into the battlefield, it supports. When it enters the battlefield, we get to support 2, which means we get to put +1/+1 counter on up to each 2 target creatures. So we roll something on our side of the board, as well as stopping our opponent's creature from attacking or blocking. We have Lagona Band Storyteller, 4 mana 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you can search. You may put a target enchantment card from our graveyard on top of our library. If you do, gain life equal to that mana card's value. So if we cast one of our enchantments, the creature that our thing that we may have enchanted has been removed. We can put that enchantment back on our battlefield, which allows us to draw it on our next turn, or if we have some sort of draw effect. And then we also gain life equal to its converted mana cost, which is definitely pretty cool. We have Elder Leaf Mentor. It's a 4 mana 3/2. Enters battlefield, we create a 1/1 green elf creature warrior token, so just a little bit more of a board presence, which is also pretty awesome. We have Wildheart Invoker, 4 mana 4/3. Has a tap 8 ability, 8 mana. Target creature gets +5/+5 and gains trample to end turn, so kind of like a pump effect, maybe like a late game finisher. This deck could possibly have 8 mana without having 8 lands on the battlefield, so definitely a pretty good ability as well. And also Trample is another good ability, especially when you're playing a deck that could get wide and pretty aggressive. And then the last 2 cards on the top end of the deck, we have Captivating Unicorn. It's a unicorn with a Constellation ability that whenever enchantment enters the battlefield under control, you get to tap target creature opponent controls. It has a tap down effect, and it's a 4/4 for 5. And then we have Grizzled Outrider. It's a 5 mana 5/5, and that's about it. It's just a 5/5 for 5. It's kind of like a elf and a bear kind of combined together, so it's like a 5/5 bear. And then on top of it, our mana base is pretty straightforward. We have 5 planes. We have one secluded step for the cycling ability, or also even a plane onto the battlefield tap land in case we do need the white. But the cycling ability is definitely very good as it gives a little bit more tempo play to the deck. 8 forests. We have one tranquil thicket. It's just a green version of the white card we just talked about with cycling. And we have 2 copies of Blossom and Sands, just a cool dual land that kind of allows us to kind of make green or white mana depending on what we need. As our deck looks very green heavy, the white mana is always good to have, especially in case we do draw those white cards. But green's kind of like the cards we definitely want to do because it does look like we have a lot of cards that have multiple green symbols, and this lane kind of helps us with that. I mean, other than that, what we can do now is we can jump into some games. We can play the matches, and the goal here is no matter how many times we lose, as long as we win 2, we get rewarded with 2 rare or better historic Jumpstart Horizon cards, which is definitely very good. So, I mean, the one thing I would say that's kind of like the good and the bad of this as a whole, depending on where you are leaning right now, but just from what I've explained about what this is kind of doing as an event as a whole, this is definitely something that could be done in a way if you're new to maybe historic, you don't really have a lot of cards. This is definitely a good way to maybe build up a little bit of collection to get you started, and also not jumping you right into historic, as sometimes right now, especially because I do think there's a couple of things that when this set got introduced, it kind of broke historic in a way. And there's some different decks out there that kind of like essentially break the game currently, and we'll kind of wait and see what Wizards does to kind of balance it out. Because the cards that are really breaking the game right now are digital only, it is a possibility we could get a patch or a hotfix that kind of like changes up what the card does, because that is what they said to be kind of the idea behind digital only cards. But at the same time too, it's kind of, we'll wait and see. Maybe they'll just ban the cards because that's naturally how cards work in Magic as a whole. They don't really fix cards, they just ban them. But because it's not in any physical print form, they do have the room to possibly fix those cards. And it's essentially, it's really that perpetually ability. There's some negative perpetuals that you can do on your own creatures that kind of make certain things reoccur in the game, either letting the game end in a draw, or even doing like a combo without really having to do too much to set up the combo. I do think a couple of YouTube creators like CGB, and I think I saw an MTG Jeff video, and they kind of played the deck that puts a perpetual counter and essentially just either draws the game out without actually having to do anything, because the combo just kind of keeps on going in a cycle, and eventually the game is like, well, it's in a standstill or stalemate kind of thing, and it's either you continue and the game will end in a draw, or you can end the combo, which is definitely a weird deck to have. Plus, you can put other things on the battlefield that kind of drain your opponent's life points. But other than that, that's kind of like the one negative effect of introducing a whole bunch of cards all at once into a format as a whole. The other thing I would say that could be kind of like taken in a way, I mean, personally, I know there's probably piles in this event that you can play that are better or worse than others. Like everything, some rank higher, some rank lower. Like my deck, for example, I really don't think it's a great deck, but it could probably win the couple games I need to get the 2 free rares. But there's probably packs or piles out there that you could get that are just so good that even that one half of the deck makes, no matter what you pick alongside of it, that much better. I think MTG Goldfish did a ranking or overall tier list of the different packs. If you want to take a look at that, if I can find the article, I'll probably leave it down in the link below. Or they did on their YouTube channel. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll find it and I'll leave a link down below in case you want to reference that, in case you want to really do this and really min-max it as a whole. But other than that, I mean, this is kind of like a fun little side thing you can do. You don't have to do it. You can just craft these cards outright in case you don't want to play the event. And if you have the extra wild cards, go ahead and do so. I would say this is probably not something for someone who plays a lot of standard, or someone who's very limited on budget and time to really want to do, because really these cards you're getting aren't really used in the standard format as a whole. Sure, there's some of them that are currently in standard, but a lot of those cards are going to cycle out and go into historic. So I really don't think you should waste your time or currency into this if you're not looking to play historic in the end. So I would say, gauge where you are, where your interest is in historic as a whole, and then depending on where you go from there, if you want to maybe play it once just as a fun thing to kind of try out, even if you're not into historic, you could probably do that. But if you're getting into historic and this is kind of something you want to do, it's going to be in the game for 2 months. But guys, if you like the video, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. If you're new here, want to post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. But with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.